Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam rasulullah. We continue reading from the 40 principles, from the 40 fundamentals of the religion, Al-Arba'in fi Usul Din, by Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah. Wa nafa'ana bi'ulum fi ad-darain, ameen, ameen, ameen. So we have reached in reading the types of action which ostentation occurs, we have read 3 out of 6. And the first one, just simply a simple, very brief summary so that we'll connect the dots. The first one is ostentation in respect of the body. And here it's showing a certain physiognomy that you'd like to leave an impression with people that you are fasting, that you are weak, that you have been praying throughout the night, etc., that you don't take care of your appearance, etc. The second one is ostentation through form. Here, just simply, it depends on the, of course, Imam Al-Ghazali says shaving the mustache, giving the impression of religiosity, and well, you have many appearances in this case. It depends on, I would say there's a certain trend sometimes. Yes. So it could be specific clothing, specific, And number 3, the third is ostentation in regards to clothes, like wearing wool or another rough material. It depends, as I said, on the at what time in history, because different places have different norms. Even if you talk about Sufis, you talk about Tablighis, you talk about Salafis, you talk about... So people might have certain appearances that, send a message about who you are. So you'd like to identify with a specific, or in general. And now number 4. The fourth is ostentation through statements, such as the ostentation of preachers using flowery language. And flowery language really وتسجيعها it's about rhyming. تسجيع السجع, that's basically rhyming. In fact, even when the apostates after the death of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Musaylama al-Kadhab, the liar, he came up with few rhyming sentences because he claimed to be a prophet, and he wanted to come up with something that would make impression on people. And it is really silly. ضفدع ضفدعين مالك تنقين. It's just like it rhymes, but it's nonsense. So saj'a in Arabic, if we talk about the translation, it is saj'a, really. Okay. And choking or tearing up. When relating points of wisdom, hadiths, and statements of pious predecessors. Despite these actions, the ostentatious person is all the while devoid of the realities of truthfulness and sincerity inwardly. Rather, it is also that the speaker may be thought of as possessing those qualities. Hence, he displays sorrow before an audience, yet disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in private. Another example is claiming to have memorized hadith, or to have met sheikhs, and being quick to judge a hadith as sound or defective, so that one may be thought to possess an abundance of knowledge. Similarly, moving the lips in remembrance, or commanding good and forbidding evil in the presence of people, while the heart is devoid of grief over disobedience, or showing anger over objectionable acts, and regret over disobedience, while the heart is devoid of any hurt. The fifth is ostentation through practice, such as prolonging standing in prayer, meaning in front of people, of course. And let's put it this way, not every prolonging is ostentatious. Imam Al-Ghazali narrates the story of someone who it crossed his mind that the prayer of a person in the mosque was really, really good, excellent. I mean, it appeared. So it crossed his mind that he should have prayed this prayer. Of course, it's not the obligatory prayer, the congregational prayer, the extra, the sunnah, as we say. And he said to himself, yeah, all this was playing in his head. He said he should have prayed this beautiful prayer at home, kind of accusing him of being ostentatious. And this person who started thinking like this, he said that he was uh, punished by not being able to pray at night for a couple of months or so. But the story also does not mean that every beautiful prayer in public is okay. This is something that is between one and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one and his Lord. So, the fifth is ostentation through practice, such as prolonging standing in prayer, bowing and prostrating well, lowering the head, not looking around much, giving charity, fasting, performing the Hajj, walking humbly, and closing the eyes. The ostentatious person does these things, while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows of his inner self that if he were alone, he would do none of it. Rather, he would pray lazily and walk hastily. Indeed, he might do that when walking. But if he were to feel someone looking at him, he would return to tranquility, like modifying his behavior in public, so as to be regarded as possessing humility. The sixth is ostentation through a person having many students and companions, or frequently mentioning sheikhs so that he may be thought to have met many of them. This is like someone who loves to be visited by scholars and sultans, so that it might be said that he is among those from whom blessings are sought. The aforementioned are the main ways in which people are ostentatious within the religion, all of which is unlawful. In fact, they are among the major sins. As for seeking status in the hearts of people through actions that are not acts of worship or religious, this is not prohibited so long as there is no deception. As we have mentioned in regards to seek status, worldly people may seek status through abundant wealth and slaves, beautiful high-end clothes, memorizing poetry, knowledge of medicine, mathematics, grammar, and lexicology, and other deeds and states. This is not prohibited so long as it does not lead to anyone or annoying others with arrogance or other blameworthy characteristics. We have elaborated upon the types of ostentation because it is the most dominant blameworthy characteristic of the self. Whoever does not know evil and its place or its places is not able to be aware of it, and Allah knows best. So, and this is really, it reminds us of a hadith of probably Hudayfa, radiallahu anhu, that he used to ask the Prophet ﷺ about evil for fear of falling into it. You need to know that which is good. You need to know that which is bad so that you could avoid that which is bad. Levels of ostentation. Ostentation is despicable on a number of levels. The first of them is that which is not through religious or devotional affairs, like someone who wears nice clothes when he goes out, contrary to what he wears when alone. And someone who spends extravagantly to host rich people, so as to be thought extremely generous, not so as to be thought of as pious and righteous. This is not unlawful, for indeed, possession of hearts is like possession of wealth. Of course, a little bit of it is all right and beneficial, but an abundance of it distracts from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like the abundance of wealth. Whenever aspiration is directed toward increased status, and this leads to heedlessness and acts of disobedience, then it becomes forbidden for this reason, not in itself. Not in itself. As for showing the aforementioned qualities in order for people to believe that one is religious and pious, this is prohibited for two reasons. The first reason is that it is a deception. If a person wants people to think that he is sincere and obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and loves him, when this intention makes a person an open sinner and hated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a man were to hand over money to a group and make them imagine that he is being generous to them, when in fact he is handing over a debt, then he has disobeyed because of his deception, even if he never sought to be thought of as righteous, because possession of hearts through deception is unlawful. The second reason is that if a person seeks Allah's creation through worshipping Allah, then he is a mocker. If someone stands before a king as if he is there to serve, yet that is not his aim. His actual aim is being attention of one of the king's slaves or slave girls. Then observe the punishment this mocker deserves for his mockery of the king. This is simply an analogy. It is as if he has sought out the slaves through worship, believing that Allah's slaves are more able to benefit him or bring good to him than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the greatness of the slaves in his heart calls him to beautify himself in their presence through worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why ostentation is called the minor association of partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الشرك الأصغر الرياء الشرك الأصغر. Furthermore, the sin increases with the increase of corruption in the objective and intention. There are ostentatious people who do not seek anything but plain status. Then there are some who seek to lay down deposits or take over endowments and the wealth of orphans in order to embezzle them, which is undoubtedly even filthier. Some are ostentatious in order to get close to women and boys, so that he is able to engage in debauchery, or in order to increase his wealth, so as to spend it on wine and musical instruments. This is an even greater sin, for he has made worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a means to opposing him. We seek refuge with Allah from this. Subjects of ostentation. Just as ostentation becomes worse and its sinfulness more despicable according to its different motivating reasons, it also becomes worse according to the subject of ostentation and how strongly it is intended. As for the subject of ostentation, this has three levels. The worst of them is that a person is ostentatious regarding the basis of faith, like the hypocrite who shows that he is a Muslim yet his heart has not submitted, or the atheist, or someone who believes in permitting the forbidden yet shows that he is persistently faithful, when inwardly faith has been snatched away from him. The second is ostentation regarding basic acts of worship, like someone who prays or pays zakah in front of people, while Allah knows what is within him. If he were by himself, he would not do these things. The nice. Imam Al-Ghazali once, in fact, if you go back to the chapter on zakah in Ihya Ulum, you'll find that Imam Al-Ghazali tries to motivate us to pay the zakah in private in order not to offend people, and to try to really to if you could, to be unknown really. You might say how you could do that. It's very simple. It could be through institutions, so that people would not know. I mean, people who receive the zakah would not know that you are the person. So you are not trying to reap benefits later on, whether it's dua, or people might make dua for you in private, and while you don't know, that's even much better, because dua fi ظهر الغيب, that's the best thing. If you remember a friend, in general, without telling them that you are making dua for them, that's really that would be really, inshallah, accepted. Not that the others are not accepted, but in private. I know of cases where people made donations and they remained anonymous, throwing an envelope through a window. Okay, but the idea is trying to control the heart. The heart is ready sometimes to switch, trying to get the credit in public from people, which is really ostentatious. The third, which is the least of them, is when a person is ostentatious regarding supererogatory acts rather than obligations, like someone who does much supererogatory prayer and embellishes the form of the obligatory prayer, or pays zakah with the best of his wealth, or prays the night vigil prayer, or fast the day of Ashura, while Allah knows what is within him. If he were by himself, he would not do any of these things. This is also unlawful, even if the severity of his punishment does not reach the extent of ostentation regarding the basics. As for ostentation worsening according to the degree of intention, this could reach the point where a person prays without being ritually clean for the sake of people, or fasts when he would eat if he were by himself. Without really making ablution. So he say that people gather in one place because of a specific occasion, and practically everyone prays regularly except for himself, and they decided to pray, and rather than going and making ablution, he would just simply join them just to be with the to appear. Really, it's ostentatious, it's riyah. It's very dangerous, very dangerous in sense of the impact of on one's fate. Would people do this? Yes, I know. Or simply sometimes it's even sometimes they don't even pray. We know very well at Al-Aqsa Mosque, there is one, when we talk about funerals, there is a place within the mosque where those who do not pray, they gather there. They just don't join the, usually it's the noon prayer. Of course, there are funerals that take place, after Asr, or even later. But usually it's the funeral takes place immediately after the noon prayer. So if the relatives or friends or what have you, they stay in that spot, it means they simply they don't pray. They just wait for the funeral to come, and once people pray for the funeral prayer, they will join the funeral on their way out without praying. And it's sad. I saw someone who, for the first time and the only time in my life, to my knowledge, at Al-Aqsa Mosque, was someone whom I have known for decades practically. And when I saw him at Al-Aqsa Mosque, it was, I was really, I was happy, to tell you the truth. I was happy that he made it, he just came to the mosque, and I, to my knowledge, he does not pray. I mean, we are colleagues at the university, and he does not. He even does not hide doing certain things that are haram. But when I saw him in the mosque, I loved it. I mean, for a moment, I loved it. So when I talked to him for a minute or two, then it was really the call for the prayer. And I thought we will walk together inside the Qibli mosque, and he said, just go ahead of me. And I went, and apparently it was the funeral of his mother, and he did not pray. That's sad. You come to the mosque, and people will pray for your mother, and you wouldn't. And you are not young. You are in, when you reach, practically old age, and you don't pray. I don't know which is worst, but definitely it's If people are going to pray for your mother, why would you come to the mosque? Yes. As for ostentation worsening according to the degree of intention, this could reach the point where a person prays without being ritually clean for the sake of people, or fasts when he would eat if he were by himself. The intention of worship could also be connected to this and has three states. The first is that worship is an independent motivation. If he were alone, he would do it. However, another person seeing him increases his energy and his practice is lightened because of him. I hope that this amount of ostentation does not nullify his deeds, and that his worship is valid and he is rewarded for it, whereas he will be punished for intending ostentation or his reward diminished. Yes. The second is that the intention to worship is weak, so that if he were alone, he would not be independently motivated to worship. This person's worship is invalid, and weak intention to worship does not negate the severity of Allah's loathing of him. The third is that the two intentions are equal, so that each one exists as an independent motivation when the person is alone, or that a person is not motivated to do either one of them, but rather both of them together. This has rectified a thing while ruining is its like, for one would not normally exchange capital for capital. It might be said that if the two intentions are equal, then one of them is expiation for the other. However, the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am the freest of those free from need of partnership. There's a hadith mentioned in by in the compendia of Imam Muslim, and this would be hadith Qudsi, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the speaker. أنا أغنى الشركاء عن الشرك من عمل عملا أشرك فيها معي تركته وشركه. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free, is not in need of partners, and whoever performs a deed in which he includes someone else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will abandon him and washirkahu, and that deed will be rejected. So again, that form, this hadith is mentioned in the compendia of Imam Muslim, Sahih Muslim. This indicates that He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will not accept the deed nor reward it. As for Him punishing a person because of it, this requires examination. The most probable to me and knowledge is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the person is not free from sin and punishment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reject the deed, will not reward him for it. Now, whether he will be punished for that kind of shirk, Imam Al-Ghazali says that, let's look into the matter, but he says that for the most part, he is inclined, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but he's inclined to say that he's not devoid of sin and punishment. أنه لا يخلو عن إثم وعقاب. The next subtitle is ostentation can be clear, hidden, and more imperceptible than a crawling ant. Inshallah, we'll continue reading this subtitle with this subtitle tomorrow بإذن الله عز وجل. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.